Right, line boring tools. That's the line boring, line reaming. That's the reamer that I use. Spiral flutes, long shaft. This bit of kit, as you can see, it's turned, it sits into the bearing. Now it won't just drop right through because it's a tight fit. So that obviously goes into the bearing, which centralises that piece. And then obviously the reamer itself can't, there's no play in that. Probably like quarter of a thou play, enough that it can rotate, so that when that's set up and you've got your cam plate bolted in place, when you ream through the pinion bush, it reams perfectly in line with that bearing, with the bearing there, so that when you put your crank in, the pinion shaft, obviously when it's through and you put your cam plate on, it's perfectly in line, which is what you want. Now that reamer reams a couple of thou under, and then I hone the bush to the finished size. That's the tools anyways. Okay, what we'll do next is I'll set the case up properly and we'll press the new inner cam bearings into place. So I'll get set up and we'll come back to that. Right, I'm going to press in new cam bearings, inner cam bearings. The Torrington, it's got Koyo, which is a tuck over Torrington, but these are the Torrington B148. Got a full complement of needles in these bearings, so they're a lot better bearing than the stock. You can see in that there's no cage, so you've just got all the extra needles in there. Right, on the bearing, obviously the writing faces up. The same as before, I'll start it and then release the pressure so it can centre itself. Just make sure that once you've installed your bearing, make sure that your needles roll. Sometimes when you're pressing these in, they can go in at a very slight angle, and once you've pressed them in, it jams them up. And in that situation, you have to like push them back out and redo them. So that's that one in. I'll knock it off, get the other one sorted and get it so that you can see it, and then I'll do that one. Right, same for this bearing, just writing up. Try not to let go of your tool before it's pressed in. Push it in so it starts, release the pressure so it can centre itself, and then push it home. Check that they remove. Which they both do. And that's your inner cam bearings in. Right, knock it off again. Right, I've just found out some info. Well, it's not info actually, it's just pressed the bearings into the case, as you know. Next thing I was going to do was refit the piston jets. These spray oil up onto the underside of the piston. It sort of mists and it takes temperature out. It can reduce, this is I can't even remember where I read it, but these apparently can reduce the piston temperature by up to 50 degrees. Now the reason this motor was coming apart is because I've ridden this bike for the last 5 years, 4.5, 5 years. You get to know your bike. When I was like giving it a bit of throttle to like pass a car or something like that, I just noticed that it just didn't have the same grunt as normal. So I knew something wasn't 100% in the engine. And I was putting it down to it could have an air leak. Something could have just gone, you know, bad. I did compression test and the compression test was okay. It was quite a good one actually. But I did have a rear cylinder that got very hot. Now I know they do anyways, especially if you're sat in traffic or something like that, but this was hot even when you were blatting down the road. Now when I come to fit me piston jets, I was giving them a clean out, and the front one off the front cylinder, I'm just trying to find something to poke with, I can't find now. Anyways, the front one, you'll be hard pushed to see this probably, but right inside your piston jet there's a spring and there's a ball bearing in this end, and when you're at like low revs, like tick over for instance, the pressure of the pressure of the spring pushes the ball and closes that so that you're not spraying oil up into your pistons, and it puts more oil pressure to your top end. And as you start to rev it, you get more oil pressure. Obviously the more you rev it, the more oil pressure you get, and the pressure pushes the ball, opens up the chamber in there, and then obviously sprays out the little nozzle on the top. So anyways, cleaned the front one, no problem. Put me tube into there and sprayed, and the stuff was coming out and all hunky-dory. The bearing was going in and out. Ball bearing, if you poked it with a point, was going in and out freely. Anyways, the rear one, when I come to do it, stuck the spray nozzle into there, off my cleaner. Nothing at all coming out of this. And when I've tried to, with my pointer, when I've tried to put it up the middle of there and push the ball in and out, that is solid and it won't move at all. Trying to put some stuff directly into the jet to push it that way, and it doesn't make a shite of difference. That is blocked solid. Now I've ordered 2 new ones, so I'm just waiting for them coming. But these are something that are often overlooked. You know, people don't even bother taking them off half the time. But I've got a sneaking suspicion that if I break this in half, because it's knackered anyways, so if I break that in half, I reckon that's going to be full of silicone. Because I found a lot, as I explained earlier, about on the old bearing that came out of this case. Well, it might not have been the one that came out of this case, it might have been the other side case. But as I was talking to you to say about the bearings were the same, etc., I found a lump of silicone because I was rolling the bearing in my finger and a lump of silicone came out. And there was, in the oil ways, because obviously when I've washed the cases and stuff, I've cleaned all the oil ways, and it was surprising how much of this silicone stuff was coming out. And I reckon, I might be wrong, but I reckon if I break that in half, I reckon that's going to be full of silicone. Which, now I've found that, it really does explain everything. Back pot overheating, I know that's the front pot actually, that's the back pot, but the rear cylinder overheating, obviously too much expansion with extra heat, so it felt grabby. It's the wrong word to use. It was running smoothly, but it just seemed to lack that grunt when I pulled the throttle back. It's hard to explain, but if you know your bike for the length of time I've had this, you get to know when something's not right. That explains a lot. It also explains when I took the rear piston off, because this also, oil can spray into, because it's going on the underside of your piston, it can get into the piston pin, which gives it extra lubrication. Now, with that being blocked, when I took this thing apart, the rear piston pin was slightly scored, so that could be another indicator of that being a fail. But as I say, I've got 2 new ones coming. That one's fine, so I'll just keep it as a spare, but this one that's blocked, I'm going to break it up and see what's in it. But I've bought a pair, so as soon as they come I'll get them fitted on. Obviously I'll film it again, but until they come I can't go any further with this, because obviously I need to be inside the case to bolt them back on, screw them back on. So I just thought I'd let you know what the crack was there, and if you ever in your case, check them. Make sure that they've that one, you can push the ball in and out, and 2, that these, when you spray liquid through it, it actually comes out the end. Right, that's it for now.